Lately, I've been reminiscing on my past memories about a friend of mine during my master's study in France who declared that you cannot impose ethical responsibility on her, since ethics vary between individuals so that there are no such things as universal moral responsibility which applies to all. Well, the context at that time was that she was, as she puts it, infidel towards her boyfriend at that time by sleeping with someone else. However, despite the fact that her action made her feel bad towards her boyfriend, she also stated that it is not unethical at all, because universal ethics do not exist. So she felt bad. She called that infidelity, but saw no wrong in that. Are you confused? If you are, then we are on the same boat. Long story short, I was having an argument with her via Messenger, saying that even if universal ethics do not exist at all, there is one thing which she is undoubtedly bound to: responsibility towards the quote-unquote official relationship with her current boyfriend at that time. So despite her rejection towards my judgment, I did judge her. And yes, I'm not a compassionate person who can listen without judging. She could not debate my idea about her responsibility towards her boyfriend as a result of her own so-called pact with him. In the end, she ended the conversation and did not address this problem afterwards the next day. We are still friends until now, and I do have some notable differences in opinion with her in some major topics in social life. But that will be a story for another time. For now, I would like to address this notion which says that moral responsibility does not exist. My arguments will come in two parts. That moral responsibility does exist, that's the first, and that it is first and foremost individual, so that it should also be demanded from an individual. That's the second part. I will start with the most obvious point. Responsibility does exist, and it is not a mere creation of our rationality. I'm aware that postmodern philosophy and some nihilist philosophy will argue against it by saying how illusionary responsibility is. The idea of responsibility becomes even fainter in the face of leftist ideology in the West, which always calls, even shouts, for the granting of rights. It is convenient to think this way, indeed, but it is also wrong and irrational. How do I explain the existence of responsibility, you may ask? Simply put, by the fact that we are rational beings who possess free will. Our rationality and freedom makes us living potential for growth, but also for demise, be it towards ourselves or others. When we arrive at a stage where we can exercise our reflective capacity, we come to realize that we can and should choose one course of action from another. Don't get me wrong, a lot of things affect our choice and our way of exercising that choice. But the fact that we can always at least think of choosing otherwise means that the various factors affecting our judgment are by no means determining it. My cheating friend may get so engulfed by her romantic feelings and may come up with dozens of ways to describe how strong those feelings were. But that doesn't change the fact that she could have always chosen not to cheat because, as an individual, she is rational enough to be aware of her actions. Responsibility does not exist in the way empirical object exists, but it must exist, since potential actions may be made out of rationality and freedom. I hope it is clearer now that we do not create responsibility. Rather, it is demanded of us out of our rationality and free will. Now, on to the second point. That responsibility is personal and must first and foremost be charged on an individual. This is the point where I would emphasize that despite the fact that responsibility may be demanded from groups or institutions, it becomes that way since it is first and foremost personal. There are individuals who act in a group or behind an institution, so by no means collective responsibility erases our individual responsibility. It adds on to it. This also means that it is entirely logical and rational to say that we are responsible at least towards ourselves. Consequently, responsibility is not firstly demanded from us from an external institution, be it secular or religious. It is first and foremost a rational consequence of our rationality, which can then permeate into a wider societal scope depending on our personal engagement with others. I do not reject the fact that there is a societal aspect of it, since responsibility might be taught in the family. However, just like morality and ethics, the more we grow and capable of exercising reason, it will rationally appear that what our social construction did to us with regard to personal responsibility was just a means to help us realize that our various responsibilities in multiple contexts are concrete manifestations of what is fundamentally a personal state of being responsible towards oneself. So I hope it is clearer now. Before being responsible for something, or anything at all, we have always been in this state of being responsible towards ourselves because we are rational beings. We do not plan and have never planned to be rational. We have always had the rational capacity, and that is why we are morally responsible, first and foremost, and at the very least, towards ourselves as a person. Remember, folks, responsibility goes hand in hand with rationality. So there is no way you claim to be rational while avoiding responsibility, or demanding responsibility without rationality. I hope this time's discourse is helpful, if not to convince you, at least to facilitate our personal reflection.